I have purchased dozens and dozens and dozens of Airbnbs in my 7 years as an Airbnb host, and all of them are in completely different markets. I've got Airbnbs everywhere. I've got them in LA, Joshua Tree, Scottsdale, Houston, Austin, Wisconsin, Virginia, New York, and Tennessee too, and probably a few that I've missed here and there. And after what I consider a buying spree over the last 7 years, I have determined what I believe to be 4 very solid categories for choosing your first or next Airbnb market. And then I'm gonna give you 4 bonus categories to consider as well. All right, that's it. I did it. Welcome. All right, see ya. By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm Rob Abasolo. I am the founder and creator behind the Robuilt YouTube channel, one of the largest education platforms in the short-term space on the internet. I've got a community of over 3,000 students, and I'm also the owner of hostcamp.com, the #1 free resource for all things short-term rentals. So go check that out if you want free courses, guides, templates, all that good stuff. All right, so let's jump into what makes a good short-term rental market. There are 4 main categories of markets that I like to look at when evaluating a short-term rental purchase: national parks, state parks, eclectic towns, vacation destinations. Definitely my handwriting, definitely not Sophia's handwriting. We're gonna break down each of these in great detail today, but there will be a moment where you take what I teach you and you actually choose a market, and you're gonna ask yourself, how do I actually analyze a property in that market? We will get there. First, I need to teach you the fundamentals, and then at the very end of this video, I will give you something that will help you analyze properties in these markets. I'm currently watching the edit, and what I've decided to do is put together all of these categories and some potential markets for you to actually read over in this handy dandy little PDF right here, all for $99.97. Just kidding. It's 100% free, and hopefully it'll be helpful to those of you that like to have supplemental reading materials to these videos. It's linked down below, or as always, you can find it over at hostcamp.com. All right, back to the video. Let's walk through every single category, and I'm gonna break down what it is I like about these. National parks will always be my favorite types of places to invest. That's why it's at the top of this list here. But every single year, over 300 million people visit national parks. I always dub national parks as Mother Nature's Disneyland. These are places like Yosemite, Yosemite for some of you out there, Joshua Tree, the Grand Canyon, Smoky Mountains, Shenandoah National Park, and of course Yellowstone, and so many others that I can't even think of off the top of my head. So when I say Mother Nature's Disneyland, what I mean is that these are destinations that people will go to no matter what. You don't have to market the Grand Canyon. You don't have to make billboards for the Smoky Mountains. As a matter of fact, the Smoky Mountains is the #1 national park in the country, and about 14 million people a year go to the Smoky Mountains, which is just over 1 million people a month. That's a lot of foot traffic. And I can't remember off the top of my head how many short-term rental listings there are, but I want to say it's in the area of like 3,000 to 5,000 short-term rentals in the Smoky Mountains. So just when you look at that discrepancy between 5,000 Airbnbs and 14 million people, there's a pretty large gap there. So I think it's a relatively fertile market to invest in. A lot of people will pass up places like the Smoky Mountains because it's saturated, but I actually think that the demand there will always be greater than the actual supply. Here's the other thing I really like about national parks. This is actually going to pertain to state parks as well, but when you think about what makes a Airbnb recession resistant, so when you think about a recession, for example, people are still going to take vacations during a recession. Now, what this means is they are more than likely not going to go to vacation destinations like Disneyland or Disney World because it's really expensive to buy flights, to get the fancy hotel, to go to Disneyland, to buy the friggin' $47 corn dog at Disneyland. That's a very expensive type of vacation. Now, what people will still do is they will hop in their minivan or their SUV with their 2 kids and they will drive to a national park. The Smoky Mountains are within a day's drive to half of the population in the United States. So just with that in mind, it is relatively cheap to load up a cooler with like sandwich materials, some fruit, some drinks, and drive to the Smoky Mountains. You could even camp there if you wanted to, but most people are gonna book an Airbnb in the Smoky Mountains. And then there's also national parks like Joshua Tree, which is a couple of hours outside of Los Angeles, California, and that's the same type of thing. You know, it might be expensive to do a getaway to Malibu or San Diego, but Joshua Tree has a ton of Airbnbs that are pretty affordable. There's not much to do there other than go to the national parks. It's a relatively quick getaway for Angelinos. So that is national parks in a nutshell. There's actually one other huge benefit to national parks, but I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more here in state parks. If national parks are Mother Nature's Disney World, state parks are Mother Nature's Disneyland. They are smaller versions of national parks. Now, there's not going to be as much foot traffic to an individual state park compared to a national park, but it is still a concentrated amount of traffic in one town. Now, interestingly, with state parks, 800 million to 1 billion people visit state parks every single year, as opposed to the 300 million that travel to national parks. Why is that? Well, simply put, there are far more state parks than national parks. So cumulatively, Conversely, the traffic to state parks is about 3x that of national parks. And my favorite benefit of investing in a state park that will also pertain to national parks is that from a design perspective, your competition is really quite low. If you go to Airbnb.com right now, you can go look up state parks such as Hocking Hills, Dead Horse Point, and Red Rock State Park. Those are a few that I like that you can start perusing. And you're gonna see something pretty interesting about state parks. Most of the Airbnbs at state parks look like they were outfitted with your grandma's furniture or like they were outfitted from Goodwill's finest. Usually it looks like the photography was taken with a potato phone from 1990, and usually the listing copy is like 2 sentences and they've got a 4.6 rating. What this means is there are Airbnbs in these locations, but you could come in and just apply the teachings that you learned from here or hostcamp.com and do professional photography, killer listing copy, awesome design, unique amenities. And if you do these things, you can rise up to be the top 1% of your market. Now, I will say Hocking Hills is a bad example. There's a lot of great design forward Airbnbs there. As a matter of fact, my favorite Airbnb that I've seen recently is a cave. You're probably not gonna compete with the cave people, but the vast majority of state park listings are subpar. And I'm gonna say the same thing about national parks. Now, I will say there are a few national parks out there that are competitive. I am still bullish on the Smoky Mountains, but again, there is a game that you have to play and there are certain amenities that you have to succeed in the Smoky Mountains. But overall, 1 and 2 here are very fertile markets. I don't know why it feels weird to say fertile markets, but they're great markets. They're very good. They're investable markets in my opinion. And by the way, this is something that I just sort of discovered on accident, that a lot of the Airbnbs that I've personally invested in are in these areas right here. It wasn't like I did it on purpose. I wasn't like, ooh, national parks. I just started buying in national parks because I did actually notice that the competition was always low. And then when I took a collective view of my portfolio, I realized that number 1 here is kind of a gold mine if you know what you're doing. Numero 3. All right, so eclectic town, pit stop towns, and weekend towns. What that means to me is they are not something that people are going to during the week necessarily. They are sort of these towns or these little cities or municipalities that have some kind of specific draw to them that drive tourism to that town. So a really good example of this would be Fredericksburg, right outside of Austin, Texas. Really bullish on a market like that. That is considered wine country of Texas. Now, a lot of people in Texas may want to go to Napa, but it would be very expensive to do that, not necessarily feasible for a lot of people. So people in Texas are more likely to go to a place like Fredericksburg over Napa Valley because it's closer and cheaper. Another example of this would be Eureka Springs or Julian outside of San Diego. Waco's actually a really great example here in between Austin and Dallas. That's a pit stop town. That was popularized by HGTV gods Chip and Joanna Gain, and it was this awesome town that wasn't super recognized until they came in, built out the silos, built out their empire, and now there are massive waves of people that will stop by there on their way to Dallas from Austin or on their way from Austin to Dallas. That's a pit stop town to me. So what are some of these towns that are in between 2 really large metropolitan areas? And then overall, what are some of these kind of weird or gimmicky towns that people go to because you just have to? Roswell is actually a very good example of this. It's an alien town. It's by Area 51. People love sort of the mystique and sort of the hidden mystery behind what the government is hiding. And I think that's a really great example of one of those places that just have some kind of draw or something that just gets people to get out there. Now, one of the key things to understand with eclectic towns that I will say is that oftentimes it really is like a weekend gig. So your occupancy is probably not going to be 80 or 90% in these types of towns. Probably your occupancy is going to be anywhere from 30 to 50%. And so if you look at other people's calendars and they're only booked on the weekends, you might be thinking, oh, well, that's a bad investment. But just understand that low occupancy doesn't necessarily mean low revenue, because the weekend rates might be so high that it actually justifies that investment. Really good example of this for me is I've got the Pink Pickle in Austin, Texas. My average nightly rate for the last like 7 or 8 months on the weekend is $1,299. And then my weekday rates are like $250. But the vast majority of my bookings are on weekends. Meaning if you look at my calendar, it actually says my occupancy is 41%. A lot of people would see that and then troll on my YouTube comments and be like, hey, Rob doesn't know what he's talking about. His own places don't even book. But well, the Pink Pickle last month did about $12,000 in revenue. My mortgage on that property is $3,000. Call it another $2,000 for expenses. So I'm in $5,000 a month in expenses. I'll make a $7,000 profit on that specific property. So it just goes to show you that a property does not have to have high occupancy to be successful. And that is one of the key considerations here for eclectic towns, is just understand you may not be raking it in Monday through Thursday. If that makes you uncomfortable, eclectic towns, pit stop towns, weekend towns are probably not going to be your jam, especially because because your Monday through Thursday pricing is gonna be a race to the bottom. You're gonna keep pushing down your prices just to get it booked. And it will take some nuance in pricing strategy to understand how to completely own it in eclectic towns. Number 4, vacation destinations. What are vacation destinations? Well, as I alluded to Mother Nature's Disney World, Disneyland here, vacation destinations are places like the literal Disney World or Disneyland. We're also talking about mountain towns, tourist towns, ski towns, beach towns, lake towns. Here's what I like about vacation destinations and why I always think that they're gonna be a prime place to invest for Airbnb. Vacation destinations tend to be places where people will go and travel to, but they will save up an entire year with their entire family and put in for these giant epic vacations. A really good example of a vacation destination is a beach town like Destin, Florida. If you try to book a place in Destin, Florida in July, you're probably gonna pay anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for a 5 to 7 day stay. Families happily save up and do that one all-out super big family vacation once a year, and they will pay lots of money to do it. Same thing with places like lake towns where people will spend a lot of money to book a lake house, or ski towns like Baysieville, Aspen, anything like that. They're gonna be really high ticket pricings, and you will make most of your money in one big season. Now, I'll give you another great example of a vacation destination that isn't necessarily touristy, but it can be a destination. Scottsdale, Arizona is a really great example. It is a giant place for old people to retire. That's a big one, but it's a really big bachelor party destination. So a lot of bachelor parties will book these big, expensive, extravagant houses with mini golf or golf simulators or pickleball courts or cigar lounges or basketball courts, anything like that. And that is a destination for bachelors. Or going back to the Pink Pickle, my bachelorette themed property in Austin, Texas, both Nashville and Austin are top 10 cities for bachelorette parties. So you'll want to evaluate your market based on what makes it a destination for certain demographics or avatars. Now let's go back to point 1 here. I said national parks are gonna be a bit more recession proof than something like a vacation destination. And reason being, if we're in a recession, if someone loses their job, if certain industries like tech, for example, are experiencing huge layoffs, well, they're probably not gonna spend $5,000 to $10,000 on a lake house, beach house, or bachelor party, right? They may hop in their minivan or their SUV with their friends or family and go to places like Joshua Tree, Smoky Mountains. Hopefully this is starting to click for you a bit. Other thing with this is understanding seasonality is gonna bite you a bit here. Now, not to say there isn't seasonality with 1 through 3, but vacation destinations are particularly seasonal because if you're looking at like a beach town, for example, you are gonna make your money for the most part from May through August, and then maybe a little bit in September. September through May is gonna be a ghost town. It's gonna be crickets. You may not make any money. You may actually lose money, but you're profitable in those other 3 months and you can pull from your reserves right there. So you wanna understand the seasonality of a vacation destination and ask yourself, do you have the money to put into reserves to weather the dry season until you hit peak season? This is gonna be a lot more relevant in the instance where you buy a beach house in October, because that's when most beach property owners wanna sell their property because they wanna make their money in the summer, sell it in the slow season. You close in October, you're gonna basically bleed for the next 6 months, and then you'll start making money. Is that something that you can weather? If so, this is great. But if you're like, dude, I do not wanna bleed $4,000 or $5,000 a month for 6 months, I mean, that's 5,000 times 6, that's 30 grand. I gotta have 30 grand in my reserves that I'm gonna lose before I ever make a dime. Well, that's the name of the game with certain markets and the seasonality behind them. And that's why as you begin to scale and as you begin to buy more than one property, you can sort of start staggering your properties in a way where, yeah, maybe you have a couple of these seasonal properties, but you have some of these base hit national park type of places that can produce money for you year round, cover your expenses when you're losing money here, but then you have these huge swaths of cash that happen in the summer, or if you're in a ski town during the winter. And that's where we're gonna get into this idea of portfolio architecture and how to structure your properties in your portfolio in a way that you're always cash flowing versus losing money for half the year and making money the other half. That's another video for another day, but you wanna start thinking about these things as you start to choose your markets and build your portfolio. Now that we've covered the 4 categories here, a couple of considerations for you. 1, short-term rental regulations. I think this goes without saying, but if you're gonna be looking at a market, you wanna make sure that you can legally Airbnb in that market, right? So before you go down a huge rabbit hole of looking at 1,000 properties in that market, you should probably Google short-term rental regulations in Waco. Airbnb laws in Julian. Is Airbnb legal in Houston, Texas? Dallas Airbnb court cases. There are a bunch of different ways that you can phrase this and find out, but you want to find out, can you even operate there? That's super, super important. And that's actually going to lead me to the other consideration that I think is hugely important, and that is it economy driven? The Smoky Mountains, for example, is the #1 short-term rental market in the country, in my opinion, and it is certainly the largest national park park in the country. In the entire economy and microeconomy of Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, that entire area, it's driven by short-term rentals. Meaning, if the Gatlinburg Board of Directors decided to make Airbnb illegal, well, that would absolutely crush thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs. They would put thousands of cleaners out of business, handymen out of business, pest control people out of business, pool hot tub maintenance companies out of business. That entire city literally revolves around the world of short-term rentals. So you want to ask yourself, is the market that I'm buying in dependent on short-term rentals? All right, so those are gonna be two huge considerations. Another one I didn't put on here because it's kind of no duh, but affordability. Can you even afford to invest there? LA, San Diego, SoCal, anything in that area is obviously gonna cost you 2, 3, 4 times more than most of the other country. You probably can't afford it. And if you can't afford it, then there's no reason to even think about it. But if you can just understand what your budget is beforehand and what you can actually afford, you could also save yourself some time and automatically rule out certain markets. Okay, so those are the two main considerations that I want you to think through. And now I'm gonna take you through 4 bonus categories that I like to consider whenever investing in a new short-term rental market. Hey, by the way, if you like what I'm teaching you here and you like free education, be sure to check out www.hostcamp.com. That's my website that I have dubbed the #1 free short-term rental resource in the world. You can get my free Airbnb course there, templates, guides. I have a blog on there, a forum where you can interact with other people in the short-term rental community. It's awesome, it's free, and it's a great place to level up your short-term rental education. And all my free stuff is linked down below, right next to that like button. All right, 4 bonus categories that you can also consider. These are a bit less tangible than the 4 I just gave you, but they're good to keep in mind. That's okay, you at least have some guardrails here to think through. 1, familiarity. 2, in your backyard. 3, boots on the ground. 4, places you want to vacation. Let's talk about the first one here. Familiarity. Markets that you actually know like the back of your hand. For example, I'm from Houston. I went to school in Austin at the University of Texas. I lived there for 4 or 5 years. I know the markets, I know the neighborhoods, I know all the cool places to eat, I know the hip parts of town, which as I say that makes me feel old, but that's okay. That's fine. I'm middle-aged. I'm 34. I'm loving it. It's actually a great age. It's the happiest I've ever been. Leave me alone.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
What's a town that you actually know quite well? I know it, I'm familiar with it, and thus I feel more comfortable doing it. Now, really, I think this is more of a mental thing. If you're the kind of person that you're like, ooh, man, I want to buy a property, but the Smoky Mountains, I've never been, I don't know anything about it. You start getting this analysis paralysis. All right, that's fine. Like, don't invest in the Smoky Mountains if that really bothers you. Find something you're familiar with because it's going to make you more comfortable. 2, in your backyard. Now, I don't actually mean in your backyard, although when I got started, it actually was in my backyard. I built a tiny house or ADU in Los Angeles, California, and that was actually in my backyard. But what I actually mean by this is build anywhere from 1 to 2.5 hours away from where you live, because feasibly you can hop in your car, drive to it, and check up on it if you want to. Now, at the end of the day, you're not really ever gonna do that. I live close to plenty of my properties, but I do find that when people are getting started in the world of Airbnb, the comfort of knowing that you can get there super quickly makes a lot of people feel comfortable about investing there. Okay, so I live in Houston, Texas. Crystal Beach is about an hour and a half away, super close. Joshua Tree was about 2.5 hours away from Los Angeles for me, and I was able to go every single weekend while I was building my Airbnbs out there. Now, we're not gonna cover this in today's video, but ideally, you build out a team of Airbnb Avengers that will do 99% of the work for you. Your cleaners, your handyman, your pest control, your landscaper, all those people will manage your Airbnb from afar, so you'll never actually have to travel there. You're gonna try to delegate as much as possible. As I mentioned, if you're thinking, oh, the Smoky Mountains, it's so far, I don't know anything about it, what do I do? Okay, great, invest in your backyard. That's super close. You're gonna feel a lot better, you're gonna sleep a lot better, and honestly, it might be good for you to travel to every couple of weeks or every couple of months when you're getting started as an Airbnb host, because it kind of helps you learn the process a little bit more and be a bit hands-on, which your first Airbnb is the one that you're always gonna be the most hands-on with anyway, so the closer, the better. 3, boots on the ground. Do you have cities where you have connections or people that can help you? Do you have a city where you know a really good contractor, or maybe you have an uncle who's a handyman and you're like, okay, great, if I invest in Cincinnati, Uncle Bob has a handyman service, and if anything ever breaks on my Airbnb, I feel comfortable knowing I have someone that is willing to go out there and address any minor or major emergencies that might come up. Do you have family? Do you have best friends? Do you have any connections in any city that maybe you could pay a couple of bucks to go and check in on your Airbnb when shit hits the fan? That is really the idea behind boots on the ground. Again, going back to point 2, you're gonna have a cleaner, a handyman, pest control person, a landscaper, and everything in between. Those are the people you're really gonna empower to go and check on your property when anything goes wrong. But there is a peace of mind that I will say, knowing that you have personal connections that will have your back if anything ever goes crazy. And then lastly, and I honestly think this is the most important one, if I had the marker, I would really just put a line under here, places you wanna visit. I think this is really important. This is sort of the initial idea behind behind Airbnb for me. When I first got into this business, I really wanted to have 12 properties because I told myself if I could have one property that I could go to every single month, that would be really awesome and I'd be able to take 12 vacations every single year. Well, now I've got over 40 and I've never done that, but the concept was really nice and it actually still to me applies because ultimately the true idea with Airbnb is owning property that other people pay for. And so if you buy a $500,000 house and you have other people paying your mortgage, well, over the course of 30 years when that mortgage is paid off, you now have a property that is worth significantly more than $500,000, probably like $1 million or $1.5 million that other people paid off, and you get that awesome appreciation and that debt pay down from renters. But that's more the tactical real estate side, debt pay down, appreciation, blah, blah, blah. Get into fancy words and fancy terms there. Really the premise of this is, where do you vacation the most and how can you just acquire property and vacation there for free while other people pay for it? Remember when I said Destin? That's a really great example. If you go to Destin every single year and you're paying $5,000 to $10,000 to stay there for 5 to 7 days and you're tired of spending $5,000 to $10,000, what if you could own that property in Destin and for 99% of the year you rent it out to other people, and then for that 1% you come stay for 5 days for free because it's your Airbnb and it's like no sweat off your back, right? That's kind of the beauty with Airbnbs, is that you can own dream homes that you don't actually have to pay for. I've got a property in Scottsdale, Arizona. It is a multi-million-dollar mansion, and the cool thing is other people are paying for it. And in the time that I've owned it, it has actually appreciated about $1 million, $1.5 million. And so for me, I've owned that property, other people have paid for it, and if I sold it right now, I would get a 7-figure check from it. Well, that's really the general premise and the big idea behind Airbnb. We can get into return profiles and ROI and cash on cash return and all that fancy stuff in a different video, but just remember, Airbnb is a place that you can enjoy for yourself and other people will pay for it. And those will be your 4 bonus categories. Familiarity, in your backyard, do you have boots on the ground? Is it a place that you want to vacation? Now, let's say that you find a property in one of these 4 categories or in one of the 4 categories that we talked about earlier, and you are ready to analyze it to determine if it's gonna be profitable, then you're gonna wanna check out this video right here where I break down my exact process for analyzing and penciling out a deal to make sure that it's actually gonna make money. So go check that out after you've liked and subscribed. Ding!